Now, for this boy's case, it's not just enough injury that he's died in police custody for whatever reasons, because of course the parents have been told that he hit his head on the wall and then passed out. But then his corpse is yet to be released to his family, which is a whole different kettle of fish on its own.
As a Nigerian, if I can't sleep at night and I'm having nightmares and somebody's going to kill me, the safest place for me to go and pass the night should be a police station. So you should not have me in custody of the police and I actually wind up dead the next morning and then my corpse is missing. Like, explain to me. I don't. It's sometimes in Nigeria, like the more you look, the less you see. How is it that a young man who is within the covers of the police goes missing, his corpse goes missing or unaccounted for? And this is a country in which you've seen all kinds of criminality get perpetuated. Perhaps this young man's body could have gotten thrown into a mix of bodies they will claim, were armed robbery suspects. You've seen a lot of that. When I was 18 years old in Whaats State, I had a family, a very close friend, Odu. He was a young boy, he was a Uniport student. UST at the time actually got executed by a police DPO. This was back in 1999. And at the time, he was labeled an armed robber, but he was just a young boy coming back from classes in school. So for many of us, we've grown up seeing this horror. We understand what happens in our society, and we're only fearing the worst. If you have a young 16, 17-year-old kid, boy or girl, you go to bed at night wondering if that young person running an errand is safe and will come back home.
You said something about, you mentioned, using the tribesmen of a particular state as security personnel. And I'm wondering, doesn't it kind of shift away from the idea of integration? Are we not supposed to be centering our focus on the human side of these officials, their professionalism instead of focusing on using tribesmen of a particular state? What do you think about that?
You deploy me all the way from Sokoto or perhaps Kobe to Delta or to Akure, Ondo State. I don't know anyone in the community. I'm left to fend for myself. My income is crappy at the time. We knew Nigerian police officers are not paid very well today. Again, with the new, let me call it, demands we made from the 5 for 5 during the NSARS. I hear police salaries have been reviewed upwards. I hope those wages are very livable. But it's been a known fact that Nigerian police officers were the worst paid individuals in Nigeria. So how do you give a man a gun? Put the man in a community where he has no relatives, no friend, no social support network, and expect the same man with the training, the very poor training he has received, to live to the highest ordeals? It's impossible. Even when he's a good human being, there is still that measure of temptation to use that weapon or that tool of oppression within his possession to enrich himself or to feed himself. For many times, it's them trying to really see that they have ability to feed. And I say this because we ought to review our policing structure. Every generation writes its rules. So people in my generation are simply saying, from what we've seen growing up, you cannot keep doing things the same way, expecting different results. At what point do we sit back as a nation and reevaluate our policing structure? Perhaps do we have young people in societies who understand their communities, who understand the elements in their society, in their communities that are the problem, who understand the solutions to the problems? So when you transplant people from one community to another without adequate welfare, without a support system or a structure that gives them the relief that I will be okay, how do you then expect them to wake up every day and they get a phone call and they tell them there's an armed robbery down the street, and then he look at you, oh, when that armed robber kill me, who will bury me, who will carry my body, go back my village? And you start hearing some of these things that again demotivate people.
Police brutality cannot stop. Our brother, where is police officer, is working for Abia State there. They keep how they call the rank, the one where she they shake gun, give orders, make them go work. So that they clear that rank on 2020 January. So she used to tell me that instead of her for be for office, he prepare for be for checking, for the checking. No a day she must take 30,000. Wow. He must get 30,000. That's in mama with my father, with his brother and sister. So police brutality will not stop. Another thing is that they copy governor them. The kind words where used to come from governor their mouth. That's the way where police copy them. They do waiting them like that's the issue.
In terms of Anambra State, as regards Nigerian police force, it is a hell of a state. Anambra is a state where the inhabitants use police for intimidation. And they are the people that hate these policemen so much. They use police to intimidate their fellow brothers. Understand me? Do you know, if Nigerian police force is the only government profession and Nigerians start doing what they're supposed to do, is the only government profession that we can put to proper, they will be behaving properly. If we Nigerians should wake up, you understand me? But we are more of the problem than the police force. I am not a police force. None of my family members are police.
Quickly, in few seconds, how are we part of the problem, or how are we
Why we are
the problem?
part of the problem is that we are not doing what we are supposed to be doing.
Which is?
Taking up issues, you understand me? If police will arrest you now, without you doing anything, there are processes you should go. You understand me? There are things you're supposed to do. It will start going down. But we are they will do whatever they like and we will do nothing.
Okay.
Well,
When you throw the problem back at Nigerians, I want to then ask, what are you attempting to do at the end of it? You want to just push Nigerians to an ocean with all of the myriad of problems you have? Now, there's something that equally plagues us in Nigeria as a nation. We have a talent at blaming the victim. If a young girl gets raped, they'll tell her she wore mini skirts. If a wife is beaten at home, they'll say she was rude to her husband. If a young boy is arrested outside the road, they say, hey, but look at your haircut. We always blame the victim before we take, without even taking a focal look at the problem, saying these are institutional issues that have to be resolved. And I don't know what it will take to reprogram in Nigeria, man, because I hear it all, many times too often. I ask myself, are we psychologically damaged to a point where we cannot be redeemed? And I say this because if you're a Nigerian listening to this radio program, it ought to be a kitchen table discussion. Don't wait till it's a family member or it's a close friend or an ally that is the victim. But again, anytime we hear these cases, we should all feel the same emotion, because it could be you or I walking down the street innocently that finds your hands at the mercy of a system that is brutal.